Great chose the Neva Delta, an ancient water trading route, as Russia's outlet to the sea and the site for its new port city. A fortress called Saint-Petersburg was founded on May the 16th, 1703. Scattered across almost 100 islands, St. Petersburg sits on one of the world's prime networks of waterways, which make up 1/10 of its entire area. St. Petersburg is a maze of 86 rivers and channels, whose total length comes close to 300 kilometers. The Neva flows through the city for a stretch of 32 kilometers. Nearly 400 bridges were built within its limits in order to combine all of its separate parts into a single whole. St. Petersburg ended up leading the world in the number of bridges. 22 of them are drawbridges. As the 5 million strong population of St. Petersburg becomes quiet after the working day, and its inhabitants have their last cup of tea before going to sleep, the Medvedev father and son are just getting ready to leave for work.
So we're on our way.
Sergei Senior and Sergei Junior are engineers who service St. Petersburg's drawbridges.
Bye-bye.
See how good it is to drive at night? There are practically no cars. And you get to work within 20 minutes instead of 1 hour.
Sergei Medvedev Sr. is in charge of the Palace Bridge. It's in the very heart of St. Petersburg and links the city center with Vasilyevsky Island. Sergei Medvedev Jr. is in charge of the Tuchkov Bridge. The engineers report for work 2 hours before the drawbridges are scheduled to be lifted. Within this period, they must check if all of the mechanisms are ready for work, because even the smallest defect may delay or even stop the raising of a bridge and make it impossible for ships to pass through.
Sometimes I have nightmares. My bridge is opening and suddenly the spans fall apart with a crash. Or on the contrary, the spans collapse on top of passing ships. Or they vanish into thin air. I wake up in cold sweat and can't recover for a long time.
Chief Engineer Sergei Medvedev, who has handled the Palace Bridge for the last 28 years, does have reason to worry.
The entire structure of the bridge is riveted. All of these mechanisms have been working since the bridge was built in 1916.
From inside, the Palace Bridge looks like a huge clock mechanism that has functioned faultlessly since 1916.
This granddad bridge is 90 years old, but he's quite sprightly and will work for a long time yet.
The Palace Bridge is the last one in the city to retain its original complex mechanism. All of the other bridges, including the Tuchkov Bridge, raise their leaves with the help of hydraulic actuators.
This is why I feel pleased that in addition to everything else, it's also unique. It's not just central and lovely, a symbol of the city. It's also unique in relation to other bridges.
The founder of St. Petersburg, Peter the Great, wished to make the inhabitants of the northern capital feel at ease with the water element. He ordered the building of a specialized shipyard, which was due to supply the city folk with rowboats and sailing vessels. In the first half of the 18th century, all major buildings in the city had wharfs. though St. Petersburg's first bridge, the Ioannovsky, is as old as the city itself, only small riverways and waterways were spanned during Peter the Great's time. It was only in the mid-19th century that the city authorities at long last resolved to start the construction of solid bridges across the Neva. During the White Night season, from late May to early July, St. Petersburg's bridges become the center of attraction for residents and visitors alike. Hundreds of tourists from all over the world, as well as the residents, come to the Neva's granite embankments to admire the spectacle, the raising of St. Petersburg's bridges. The raising of the bridges at night begins at 1:25 a.m. on the dot. By tradition, the first to go is the Palace Bridge, where Sergei Matveyev Sr. is based. One move of his hand and the entire mechanical construction is in motion. The giant wheels begin to rotate slowly, easing down several thousand-ton counterweights that lift the bridge spans, which weigh 700 metric tons each. Within a matter of 4 minutes, the spans are at a 70-degree angle. Dozens of pleasure boats and motorized vessels circle the Palace Bridge, waiting for the moment its spans begin to open. As soon as the whole thing is over, they race each other upriver to be in time for the raising of the next bridge and feel that unforgettable thrill once again. The river is policed by a special unit which has a duty to keep law and order, check identity papers, and ensure that the boats are sailed in accordance with the rules.
The trip's over. Your boat is overloaded.
Captain Gleb Lebedev, the officer in charge of the patrol boat, believes the time the bridges are raised is the most dangerous. The police think there are enhanced risks.
When the bridges are up, the big ships start passing through, convoys of ships, and accordingly you can't cross the shipway. But people do cross it. Everyone pokes around any which way, plus the pleasure boats that bend over themselves to entice more passengers, and accordingly take on board more weight than they should. All right, they put their own lives at risk, but they also do the same with their passengers.
A few minutes later, large freighters pass through. A mere 38-kilometer-long journey by river across St. Petersburg takes 3 hours. It's a dangerous stretch of water. Captains and pilots maneuver their vessels between the bridge piers with do-or-die precision. Captain Alexander Belausov is in his 7th year on the Neva, but each journey is a real test of his skills.
We have a strong current here that tends to push you off the shipway. We have narrow passages, constrained conditions, sharp turns before the bridges and after the bridges, all the good things in life.
As many as 50 ships can pass through the city while the bridges are up for the night. Any drawbridge failure during the navigation period is likely to cause major problems.
3 or so years ago, we had a situation where a gear cog on one of these wheels broke down under the strain. The wheels are old, you know, 90 years old, and the steel cracked through fatigue. And so I had to cancel the bridge raising.
An accident resulting in the raising of the Palace Bridge being cancelled at night and which also saw dozens of ships becoming stalled upriver and in the lower reaches, was one of the most serious incidents seen by Sergei Matviev during his 28 years as a drawbridge engineer. The bridge was repaired and ships passed under it again the following night. If the city is quiet, the raising of the bridges at night is an ideal time for those looking for love and who are also in love. More than one married couple can thank the drawbridges for bringing them together. Every year, Olga and Dmitry Nikitin go to the Neva embankment to watch the Palace Bridge being raised. The bridge is almost a talisman for their family, because it was here where they fell in love.
I came to enroll at a college, and of course I was keen to see the bridge ceremony. I stayed longer than I should on the embankment, and when I realized that my side of the river was the opposite one, it was too late. I saw a lone young man walking around, and I decided to ask him when the bridges would be back in place.
I saw a girl approaching, a good-looking one. She asked me when the bridges would be back in place. We talked, we had a walk, and we didn't even notice when the bridges went back to normal. So we realized we had something in common. Since then, we have come here every year to watch the bridges and admire the city, and recall the day when we became acquainted.
When raised, the bridges split the city into separate parts for 3 hours. By 5:30 in the morning, all of the bridges are back in their normal horizontal position. St. Petersburg is waking up. A new day begins. The Palace Bridge engineer, Sergei Matviev, has come to the end of his shift.